Is your mother a Navy SEAL? FBI agent Daniel Cross burst into laughter. Women can't be SEALs. The other agents joined in the mockery, watching tears form in 18-year-old Sienna's eyes. Maybe you've been watching too many action movies, one sneered. That's when the door slammed open. Heavy boots echoed across the marble floor. 6 uniformed figures entered, led by a cold-eyed woman. Agent Cross's laughter died instantly. In the cold interrogation room of the Seattle FBI office, under harsh fluorescent lights, Sienna Clarke sat pushing her red hair away from her face as she stared at Agent Daniel Cross. She fidgeted restlessly in the metal chair, her black-painted nails tapping an anxious rhythm on the table. "Let's go through this again," Cross said, shuffling through papers in his file. "You, an 18-year-old girl, attempted to breach the Department of Defense's most secure systems. That's a federal crime, Miss Clarke." The overhead lights flickered ominously, casting shifting shadows across Sienna's pale face. She had been in this room for 4 hours now, and the psychological pressure was mounting. Her throat was parched. They'd given her only 1 cup of water since the interrogation began. "I already told you. I was looking for information about my mother." Sienna's voice cracked slightly from dehydration. Agent Lisa Park, the only female agent in the room, looked up from her notes with a flicker of sympathy before quickly masking it. "Your mother, Victoria Hale. Records show she left the military 7 years ago. No forwarding address. No contact information." "She didn't leave," Sienna interrupted, her voice determined but growing weaker. "She was assigned to special operations, the kind that don't exist on paper." Cross leaned forward menacingly. "Miss Clarke, let me paint a clearer picture for you. Your hack attempt triggered multiple security protocols. You access servers in 3 different countries using proxy chains that would make experienced cybercriminals jealous. This isn't some teenage prank. This is sophisticated cyber warfare." Sienna's heart raced. She hadn't realized how deep she'd gone into the digital rabbit hole. "I just wanted to find my mom. Using military-grade encryption tools? Bouncing signals off satellites? Come on." Cross slammed a thick folder on the table. "These are the digital footprints you left. You accessed classified personnel databases, military communication networks, and attempted to break into SOCOM archives." The room felt smaller with each accusation. Sienna pulled her oversized cardigan tighter around her frame. "I learned those techniques from online tutorials. I'm a digital artist. I understand code." "You understand more than code," Agent Park interjected, her voice carrying a note of professional respect mixed with concern. "The algorithms you wrote to bypass our security. They're graduate-level cryptography. Where did you really learn this?" "YouTube. Forums. I've been coding since I was 12. Sienna's defiance was returning despite her exhaustion. "When your mother disappears without a trace, you learn to dig deeper than most people." Cross stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Enough games. Your mother abandoned you, and your father 7 years ago. She's probably living under a new identity somewhere, maybe with a new family. Face reality." "No!" Sienna exploded, standing so quickly her chair toppled backward. "She didn't abandon us. She was recruited for something bigger." The sudden outburst brought 2 more agents rushing into the room. Agent Miller, a bulky man with coffee stains on his tie, and Agent Thompson, younger with suspicious eyes. "Everything okay here?" Miller asked, eyeing Sienna warily. Cross gestured dismissively. "Our young hacker here insists her mother is involved in some sort of special military operation. Claim she's..." Cross paused for dramatic effect. "A Navy SEAL." The room erupted in laughter. Miller nearly choked on his coffee. Thompson shook his head in disbelief. "Is your mother a Navy SEAL?" Cross was still laughing. "Women can't be SEALs. That's not opinion, kid. That's military fact." Maybe you've been watching too many action movies, Thompson added, wiping tears from his eyes. Next you'll tell us she's jumping out of helicopters and defusing bombs. Sienna felt the walls closing in. 7 years of defending her mother's honor. 7 years of being called delusional. And now federal agents were treating her like a pathetic fantasist. "My father was a Marine," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He taught me to recognize military bearing. When Mom left, she moved like someone who'd seen combat. Her hands, they had calluses in places civilians don't get them. Calluses." Miller scoffed. "Maybe from gardening, from rope work, from weapons training." Sienna's voice grew stronger. She had scars she never explained. She spoke Arabic and Pashto fluently. She could field strip a rifle in under 30 seconds. Agent Park looked up with sudden interest, but Cross waved her off. "Impressive imagination," Cross sneered. "But here's what really happened. Your mother couldn't handle military life, couldn't handle marriage, couldn't handle being a mother. So she ran. And you've spent 7 years creating an elaborate fantasy to avoid dealing with that abandonment." The cruelty in his words hit Sienna like a physical blow. She sank back into her chair, tears flowing freely now. "She used to have nightmares," Sienna whispered. "She'd wake up screaming in languages I didn't recognize. She'd check the locks 3 times every night. She taught me hand-to-hand combat when I was 10, said it was for just in case." "Just in case what?" Park asked softly. "Just in case she wasn't there to protect me." The room fell silent for a moment. Then Cross shattered it. "Paranoid behavior isn't proof of military service. It's proof of mental instability. Your mother was disturbed, Miss Clark. And now you're following in her footsteps with these cyber attacks." Sienna looked up, her eyes blazing through the tears. "It wasn't an attack. It was a search. And I found something." Cross froze. "What did you find?" "Ghost payments. Military salaries being paid to accounts that don't officially exist. Travel vouchers for locations that aren't on any map. Medical records for injuries that happened during training exercises in countries where we supposedly don't have operations." The agents exchanged glances. This was more sophisticated than they'd initially assumed. "You're saying you found evidence of black operations?" Park asked carefully. "I'm saying I found evidence that my mother is exactly who I said she is." That's when Cross made his fatal mistake. He leaned across the table, his face inches from Sienna's. "Listen, you delusional little girl. Your mother is not a Navy SEAL. Women have never been Navy SEALs. It's physically impossible, legally impossible, and militarily impossible. Your fantasy ends now." The words hung in the air like a challenge to the universe itself. That's when the door slammed open. Heavy boots echoed across the marble floor with military precision. 6 uniformed figures entered in perfect formation, led by a woman whose presence immediately commanded the room. Her blue eyes were ice cold, her bearing unmistakably that of someone accustomed to leading in life-or-death situations. Agent Cross's laughter died instantly. The woman stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Commander Victoria Hale, United States Navy. I believe you've been questioning my daughter." Cross's face went through several color changes, confusion, disbelief, then dawning horror as he realized the magnitude of his error. This can't be real," he stammered. Behind Commander Hale stood 5 operators, 3 men and 2 women, all in full tactical gear. Their faces were expressionless, but their positioning spoke of individuals trained to control any situation within seconds. "I'm Deputy Director James Morrison, Naval Special Warfare Command," announced a suited man entering behind the team. "Agent Cross, you've just made the kind of mistake that ends careers." Sienna stared at her mother, 7 years of separation bridged in a single moment. Victoria looked older, new lines around her eyes, a thin scar along her jawline that hadn't been there before. But her posture was exactly as Sienna remembered, straight-backed, shoulders squared, unshakable. "Mom!" The word came out as barely a whisper. Victoria's professional composure cracked slightly. "Hello, sweetheart. I got your message." "My message?" "Every database breach you attempted sent an alert directly to my unit. I came as fast as I could." Morrison stepped forward with a briefcase. "Agent Cross, what you're about to learn is classified at the highest levels. The existence of Joint Task Force Phantom is known to fewer than 50 people in the entire government." "Phantom?" Cross's voice was barely audible. "Female Navy SEALs," Victoria explained, her voice steady but her eyes never leaving her daughter. "We've existed for 12 years. We operate in environments where traditional male SEAL teams would be compromised or detected." One of the female operators spoke for the first time, a blonde woman with sharp eyes. "In many parts of the world, women are invisible in certain contexts. We can gather intelligence and execute operations that would be impossible for male operators." Agent Park found her voice. "But why the secrecy? Why not acknowledge female capabilities officially?" Morrison opened his briefcase. "Because the moment our enemies know we exist, we lose our greatest advantage, being underestimated. Commander Hale's team has successfully extracted hostages from regions where male teams couldn't even gain access." Cross looked like he might be sick. "I had no way of knowing." "Precisely." Morrison cut him off coldly. "You had no way of knowing, which is exactly why interrogating a civilian about classified military operations was beyond your jurisdiction and authority." Victoria approached her daughter slowly. "Sienna, I need you to know, I never wanted to leave you. The program required complete severance from our previous lives. No contact, no communication, no trace that we ever existed. But Dad," Sienna's voice broke, "he thinks you abandoned us. He's been telling everyone you ran away with another man because the truth was too painful." For the first time since entering the room, Victoria's military bearing faltered completely. "How is he?" "Broken. He started drinking after the first year. Lost his job. Moved us to 3 different cities because he couldn't handle people's pity." Victoria closed her eyes, absorbing the full weight of her decision's consequences. The massive SEAL behind her, a mountain of a man with weathered features, spoke up. "Commander, the target package was successfully retrieved. Your family is safe." "Target package?" Sienna looked confused. Morrison explained, "When you triggered those security alerts, we initially thought it was a sophisticated foreign intelligence operation. Your mother's team was activated to neutralize the threat. They were prepared for anything except this." Sienna looked around the room at the arsenal of trained killers who had mobilized because of her desperate search for her mother. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "You have nothing to apologize for," Victoria said firmly, then turned to Cross. "Agent, my daughter spent 7 years defending a truth that everyone told her was impossible. That kind of integrity is rare in adults, let alone teenagers." Cross seemed to find some of his composure. "Commander, with all due respect, your daughter did commit federal crimes, regardless of her motivations." The blonde female SEAL stepped forward. "Agent Cross, you might want to reconsider that line of reasoning." "Ma'am?" Morrison pulled out another set of documents. "Miss Clark's hacking attempts inadvertently exposed several security vulnerabilities in our systems. Vulnerabilities that foreign intelligence services could have exploited. In essence, she performed an unintentional security audit that may have prevented actual espionage." Agent Park looked up from her notes. "So she helped national security?" "Inadvertently, yes. Which means this case is being transferred to military jurisdiction. The FBI's involvement ends here." Cross made one last attempt to maintain authority. "But the cyber crimes, will be handled by Naval Criminal Investigative Service, Morrison stated firmly. This is now a military matter involving classified operations and personnel. As they prepared to leave, Victoria turned to the FBI agents. Gentlemen, ma'am, you'll each be signing comprehensive non-disclosure agreements. What you've learned today about Task Force Phantom never leaves this room. Agent Thompson, who had been silent throughout the revelation, finally spoke. Commander, how many of you are there? Enough, was Victoria's only response. In the elevator, Sienna finally asked the question burning in her mind. Mom, are you in trouble for coming here? For blowing your cover? Victoria smiled, the first genuine smile Sienna had seen. Sweetheart, after 12 years of operations, I was due for rotation anyway. This just accelerated the timeline. So what happens now? Now I become an instructor, training the next generation of Phantom operators. And I get to come home. The elevator opened to reveal the parking garage, where 2 black SUVs waited with government plates. As they drove through Seattle's rainy streets, Victoria explained more. The hardest part wasn't the mission, Sienna. It was knowing you were out there, growing up, and I was missing all of it. Did you ever think about quitting? Every day. And every day I reminded myself that the work we were doing, preventing terrorist attacks, rescuing hostages, gathering intelligence that saved lives, was protecting a world I wanted you to inherit. 3 months later, in a secure compound in rural Washington, Sienna stood in the kitchen of their new home, watching her mother teach basic combat techniques to a class of female military personnel. Through the window, she could see her father in the garden. Healthier than he'd been in years, the haunted look finally gone from his eyes. Victoria entered, still in her instructor's uniform. How was your day? Good. I got accepted to 3 colleges, all with cybersecurity programs. Victoria smiled. Following in your mother's footsteps? In my own way. Agent Park offered me an internship with the FBI's cyber division when I graduate. Apparently, they need people who can think outside the box. And Agent Cross still sends me articles about cybersecurity. I think he's trying to make amends. That evening, as the family sat down to their first normal dinner in 7 years, David raised his glass. To Victoria, who served her country in ways I never could have imagined. And to Sienna, who never stopped believing in the truth. Victoria looked at her daughter. And to families that survive anything. Later that night, Sienna found her mother on the porch, staring at the stars. Any regrets? Sienna asked. Victoria considered the question carefully. I regret the pain I caused. I regret the years we lost. But I don't regret the lives we saved or the operations that prevented attacks on American soil. Even if it meant leaving us, the hardest decisions are the ones where all choices lead to pain. I chose the pain that kept you safe over the pain that would have destroyed everything I was fighting to protect. Sienna leaned against her mother's shoulder. I'm proud of you, Mom. Even when I hated you for leaving, I was proud. And I'm proud of you for never giving up. That's the kind of courage that changes the world. As they sat together under the Washington sky, both women knew that some sacrifices were worth making, some truths were worth defending, and some families were strong enough to survive anything, even the secrets that kept them apart. In Seattle, Agent Cross locked his office and headed home, carrying a new report titled Classified Operations, The Importance of Humility. He had learned that the most dangerous assumption is believing you know everything. And somewhere in the digital realm, the ghost traces of Sienna's searches had been erased by military cybersecurity experts, but the lesson remained. Never underestimate a daughter's love or a mother's sacrifice. The truth, as Sienna had always known, was far more extraordinary than anyone imagined.